She was just walking home but what happened next changed everything. A young black girl, a mistaken identity, and a moment that shook the entire nation. Stay with us because the truth that unfolds will leave you speechless. It was just an ordinary afternoon in the quiet town of Brooksville. 14-year-old Alana James walked home from school, earbuds in her ears. She wore her school uniform, her backpack bouncing with each step. Outside the convenience store, she paused to buy a snack and a drink. Suddenly, shouting erupted from across the street. A store alarm blared. A man ran out of the store, knocking over a trash can in his escape. People began screaming, and chaos filled the once calm neighborhood. A police cruiser screeched to a halt just yards away from Alana. Without warning, the officer jumped out and charged toward her. Before Alana could speak, a burst of pepper spray blinded her eyes. Alana collapsed to the ground, crying and gasping in pain. She screamed, "I didn't do anything!" But her voice was lost in panic. Bystanders stood in shock, unsure whether to intervene or not. One woman pulled out her phone and began filming the incident. The officer handcuffed Alana roughly, ignoring her pleas. Her face was red, swollen, and soaked with tears and pepper spray. The crowd began to shout, "She's just a kid. That's not the suspect." The officer radioed for backup, still convinced she was involved. No one helped her, and not even to rinse her eyes with water. It was a moment of injustice no one present would forget. A few minutes later, another officer arrived on the scene. He recognized Alana immediately and rushed toward her. "Wait, that's Chief James's daughter," he shouted in disbelief. The arresting officer froze, realizing what he had just done. People started murmuring louder, capturing every word and action. The second officer quickly uncuffed Alana, apologizing profusely. But the damage had already been done, physically and emotionally. She sobbed uncontrollably, too shaken to even stand properly. Her father, Police Chief Raymond James, was notified immediately. He was in his office just blocks away and raced to the scene. Chief James arrived in a fury, pushing through the gathered crowd. He dropped to his knees beside his daughter and held her close. His voice shook as he asked, "What happened to my baby?" When he learned the truth, his face turned pale with rage. He looked at the officer and said, "You sprayed a child, my child." The officer stammered, trying to explain, but words failed him. "This isn't just about her being my daughter," the chief declared. "This is about how you treat people, especially black children." The crowd stood silent as the chief helped Alana into his car. News spread like wildfire within hours. The footage had gone viral. The video of the incident hit national headlines the next morning. Black girl pepper sprayed by officer, her dad is police chief. Public outrage surged, with protests forming in front of the station. People demanded accountability, reform, and justice for Alana. Chief James faced the cameras with tears in his eyes. "My child was seen as a threat because of the color of her skin," he said. He promised a full investigation and suspension of the officer. Alana remained at home, traumatized and struggling to sleep. Community leaders began to rally behind her, offering support. The moment had become bigger than just one mistake. Teachers, neighbors, and even classmates visited Alana to comfort her. They brought flowers, notes, and heartfelt apologies from strangers. Many admitted they never realized how deep the bias truly ran. Her school counselor arranged therapy sessions to help her cope. Alana stopped smiling, no longer humming songs like she used to. Her innocence had been pierced by a reality too heavy to bear. The media camped outside their home, hungry for updates. But Chief James requested privacy, focusing solely on his daughter. "I swore to protect this town," he told reporters, "and I failed my own child." He vowed to make sure it never happened again. The police officer who sprayed Alana was suspended without pay. An internal affairs investigation began the following week. Public pressure forced the department to release a full statement. They admitted fault and promised immediate bias training reforms. Alana's case became a symbol in the growing civil rights movement. People marched with signs that read, "We are all Alana." The local mayor issued an official apology to the James family. A scholarship fund was started in Alana's name to support justice reform. She was invited to speak at City Hall, but she wasn't ready yet. Her healing journey had just begun. Paragraph 8. Weeks later, Alana returned to school under a new light. Students clapped as she entered, cheering for her bravery. But she still felt the sting of what had happened to her. Her eyes would still water when she heard sirens nearby. Chief James began holding weekly town meetings on police reform. He invited citizens to share their stories and concerns. The town began to change, one conversation at a time. Alana's case had woken people up to uncomfortable truths. Her pain had sparked a fire for justice and equality. But it had come at a terrible cost. Weeks later, Alana returned to school under a new light. Students clapped as she entered, cheering for her bravery. But she still felt the sting of what had happened to her. Her eyes would still water when she heard sirens nearby. Chief James began holding weekly town meetings on police reform. He invited citizens to share their stories and concerns. The town began to change, one conversation at a time. Alana's case had woken people up to uncomfortable truths. Her pain had sparked a fire for justice and equality, but it had come at a terrible cost. Alana slowly started to find her voice again through writing. She penned poems about her experience, raw and powerful. A local newspaper published one titled, "Through My Burning Eyes." It touched hearts across the country and inspired many. Her story was no longer just one of pain but of purpose. She began speaking at schools, sharing her experience bravely. Young girls looked up to her as a symbol of strength. Her father stood proudly beside her at every speech. Though shaken, Alana had not been broken. She had risen. Her story was becoming a beacon for others. What started as a cruel mistake turned into a call for justice. Alana's courage helped change policies in the police department. The officer publicly apologized, admitting his implicit bias. While forgiveness wasn't easy, it was part of the healing. Brooksville became a model for change across the state. Chief James pushed for national police reform initiatives. Alana's story was featured in magazines and documentaries. She reminded the world that one voice, and even a hurt one, matters. Though the pain would never fully fade, it had purpose, and the world would never forget the girl who sparked change.